When employees feel that something is unfair, they act to make it fair. Peter Capelli, the professor of management and director of the Center for Human Resources at UPenn's Wharton Business School, tells Fortune. That reflects poorly on the leadership down to the manager. And that comes down to how return to office is actually executed. If you don't make efforts for people to understand the why behind you coming in, and you're just going to say, everybody needs to come in every day, no explanation, no rationale, and you're not really showcasing the why behind it, then people will react. And this is just an example of how employers need to make sure that they manage return to office like any other strategic decision that they make in their business.
Welcome to the Future of Work, where we cut through the noise and expose the real issues shaping the way we work. This week, return to office isn't about location, it's about credibility, trust, and distraction. Here's the headlines. Only 7% of CEOs go to the office full-time, yet many are demanding the exact opposite from their employees, especially the lowest paid workers. If you earn 30K pounds, there's a 64% chance you're forced into the office every day. If you earn over 50K pounds, just 20%. So the people with the longest commutes, the least flexibility, and the highest financial burden are the ones least likely to benefit from flexibility. That's not return to office. That's selective inconvenience, and it's enforced hard. Patagonia told staff to relocate in 3 days or quit. Roblox and Walmart said no office, no job. Amazon's Andy Jassy, if you can't commit, it's probably not going to work for you here. Meanwhile, these same execs are working from home or remote comfortably. It's like making your team run laps while you supervise from a massage chair.
Amazon sent a note to its workers saying they'll give them a transition period, and then from January 2025 they will have to be in 5 days a week. And Tabcorp sent an email to 1,500 of its Australian workers saying that their default position is for workers to be in 5 days a week. Now, both companies have said that they will give workers some flexibility if they have to work from home, but as a general rule, most people have to go in. And this, of course, follows other companies. For example, CBA recently told its staff they have to be in the office 50% of the time. And of course, we saw the New South Wales government tell public servants they have to go in 5 days a week. But the other side of that is that some companies are saying that they will still give workers the flexibility to be able to work from home. So, for example, we've seen Atlassian, Canva tell their workers that they have that flexibility. And in fact, these companies are reporting higher productivity by allowing their workers to have that flexibility.
What working from home conditions is the Fair Work Commission currently considering?
So the Fair Work Commission is considering changing the law for the Clerks Award, and that would basically make working from home a right. At the moment, it's not enshrined in the law, so a person can apply to their boss and ask them to work from home, for example, if they're pregnant or they have caring responsibilities, but the business can reject that on reasonable business grounds. So what this would do for about 91,000 clerical workers, it would give them potentially the right to work from home, and that's if it gets enshrined in the law. Now, the Fair Work Commission had a hearing last Friday. They haven't yet announced what they will do, but you can imagine that this would have very big implications for other businesses, and that's what businesses are really worried about. They're worried about if this gets enshrined for the clerical workers, could it be extended to other businesses as well?
And we know CBDs and the commercial property sector have been struggling since COVID. Would forcing people back to work revive the sector?
That's right. So, I mean, what we've seen pre-COVID in the data constantly is a drop in office vacancy rates. And those falls are particularly evident in the CBD areas of Melbourne and Sydney. And it doesn't just affect the landlords that lease out office spaces, it also affects small business owners. So business owners that have cafes, that have restaurants in the CBD are seeing a drop in business. So this certainly would potentially revive the CBD areas. But I think, this idea that we can go back to how things were pre-COVID is really challenging. I mean, people have really changed the way they work. Their mindsets have changed. The way they've set up to work from home has changed. They now have the systems, the mechanisms in place to be able to do it easily. Technology obviously makes it very easy. So it's really a tough ask to imagine that things are going to go exactly back to how they were pre-COVID.
Employees see double standard, and their response, what Fortune calls revenge RTO. Not a full rebellion, more like the art of petty compliance, stockpiling free snacks like apocalypse preppers, leaving the second their boss does, stretching a 1-hour lunch into 90 minutes. To managers, these look like small infractions. To employees, they're a way of balancing a system they view as unfair. Wharton's Peter Capelli says when employees feel something is unfair, they act to make it fair. Revenge RTO isn't about snacks. It's about a broken social contract with their employer.
On Reddit, there's a whole anti-work forum where the entire thread is dedicated to brainstorming subtle acts of resistance when it comes to return to office. These include never answering your phone when you're not in the office, spending as much time as possible socializing, bothering your bosses when they look busy, and intentionally burning popcorn in the microwave. When employees feel that something is unfair, they act to make it fair. Peter Capelli, the professor of management and director of the Center for Human Resources at UPenn's Wharton Business School, tells Fortune. That reflects poorly on the leadership down to the manager. And that comes down to how return to office is actually executed. If you don't make efforts for people to understand the why behind you coming in, and you're just going to say, everybody needs to come in every day, no explanation, no rationale, and you're not really showcasing the why behind it, then people will react. And this is just an example of how employers need to make sure that they manage return to office like any other strategic decision that they make in their business. You can't blackmail employees because this is what you're going to get. You have to explain the why behind your decision, and you have to be convincing. And it can't just be, look, I pay you, you should come in. It has to be something that actually explains your rationale, because if they're just going to dig in their heels and they're just going to say, I am more productive at home. But if you explain to them, look, we have concerns about remaining competitive against our competitors. We not only need you in the office developing our people and making sure that you're mentoring people and that you're out at our clients growing our business. And so we can continue investing back into you and rewarding you. That is a better explanation than come in or you lose your job. That you're going to do that. People are going to come in and they're going to be doing silly things like this. They're going to be stealing your Uncrustables. The reality is, if people are working from home for more than a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you tell them they need to go back into the office 3 to 4 times a week, or even 5 times a week with no explanation, that is not only a takeaway, it's almost like you're insulting them. You're insulting their integrity, and you're assuming that just because they're home, they're not working productively. And if you ask them, they'll say, I'm much more productive at home. At the same time, you can, as an employer, say, look, it's not just about productivity, it's about mentorship and developing our people. But if you're going to say that, then these people need to come into work, and not only the same way that you expect them to develop people and mentor people, you are developing them. You are mentoring them. You need to spend money as an employer developing these people. Your leadership team needs to spend time when these people are in the office mentoring these people. You cannot impose expectations on your employees that you yourself do not impose on yourself.
McKinsey's latest research shows RTO isn't the productivity fix leaders think it is. Worker satisfaction in remote, 90%. In office, 80%. Quit rates, both 39%. Burnout, high everywhere. If the results are basically the same, why are we so obsessed with mandates? Because it's easier to control where people sit than to fix what's broken in the culture itself. McKinsey highlights 5 practices that actually matter: collaboration, connectivity, innovation, mentorship, skill development. And across remote, hybrid, and in-person, the performance gaps on these were less than 9 points, which means it's not where people work, it's how leaders lead. or don't. Final takeaway: stop using mandates as a shortcut. That's the uncomfortable truth. Mandates are a leadership shortcut. They send the message, we don't trust you, without supervision. But when executives skip the commute themselves, the real message becomes, we don't trust you, we trust us. The future of work isn't about location. It's about rebuilding credibility, fixing trust, and addressing the cultural levers that actually matter. Because until companies face that, RTOs will keep being what it is today, a policy-shaped distraction from real work of leading. That's the future of work. Thanks so much for listening, and we have to do better. We have to do better, especially as leaders, because anything that we do, it transcends and trickles down to our employees. Not in the best way either, especially if we're saying, get into the office because we don't trust you. Get into the office because that's the way it was. Get into the office with no reason. Look, I'm actually not opposed to the office. I don't think that we need to be in there 9 to 5 every single day anymore. I think that if you make your employees go to the office, you should allow flexibility. And in that flexibility, you should allow autonomy. You should not micromanage. You, as the leader, should set the direction, help identify the expectations, the clarity, and the goals. When you have that in your framework, and then you also, little self-promotion here, but it doesn't have to be Grapevine. If you give your employees the right software and system that allows them to stay connected, collaborate, and stay aligned and updated on what's going on in the company, whether or not they're in the office or at home, then you set yourself up for success to actually see the productivity that you claim that you want by having people in the office. Again, thanks for watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.